Jesus went on, "Does anyone bring a lamp home and put it under a bucket or beneath the bed? Don't you put it up on a table or on the mantle? We're not keeping secrets, we're telling them. We're not hiding things, we're bringing them out into the open. Are you listening to this? Really listening? Listen carefully to what I am saying. And be wary of the shrewd advice that tells you how to get ahead in the world on your own. Giving, not getting, is the way. Generosity begets generosity. Stinginess impoverishes." Then Jesus said, "God's kingdom is like seed thrown on a field by a man who then goes to bed and forgets about it. The seed sprouts and grows. He has no idea how it happens. The earth does it all without his help. First a green stem of grass, then a bud, then the ripened grain. When the grain is fully formed, he reaps. Harvest time. How can we picture God's kingdom? What kind of story can we use? It's like an acorn. When it lands on the ground, it is quite small as seeds go. Yet once it is planted, it grows into a huge oak tree with thick branches. Eagles nest in it. With many stories like these, he presented his message to them, fitting the stories to their experience and maturity. He was never without a story when he spoke. When he was alone with his disciples, he went over everything, sorting out the tangles, untying the knots. Late that day, he said to them, "Let's go across to the other side." They took him in the boat as he was. Other boats came along. A huge storm came up. Waves poured into the boat, threatening to sink it. And Jesus was in the stern, head on a pillow, sleeping. They roused him, saying, "Teacher, is it nothing to you that we're going down? Awake now." He told the wind to pipe down and said to the sea, "Quiet, settle down." The wind ran out of breath. The sea became smooth as glass. Jesus reprimanded the disciples. "Why are you such cowards? Don't you have any faith at all?" They were in absolute awe, staggered. "Who is this anyway?" they asked. Wind and sea at his beck and call.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your welcome. It's good to hear that some of the things I said last time have been put into action and things have been happening. So thank you for what you shared. Pray, Lord, that you're going to speak again through this passage. Yeah, I'm in Mark chapter 4, as you know. Jesus goes back to preaching really, to the people who are gathering by the lake. And a crowd builds up, as we just heard, and he just started telling stories. And I'm going to skip through to 21, verse 21. Does anybody bring a lamp home, put it under a bucket or beneath the bed? Don't you put it up on a table or on the mantle? We're not keeping secrets, we're telling them. We're not hiding things, we're bringing them out in the open. Are you really listening to this? And then he says, giving, not getting, is the way. That's because most people think that if you're going to get on, have lots of money, then you need to be careful what you spend. Stop buying things, stop getting things, so that your bank balance stays nice and level, if not increasing, with any monies you can put in there. But he says, not getting things is not the way to be blessed. It's all about giving, generosity. If you're generous to others, others will be generous to you. That's what he says. Generosity begets generosity. Stinginess, being mean, impoverishes. Then I'm going to go through the next few verses, 26 to 29, and come to verse 28, 30, 35. Late that day, Jesus says to the disciples, let's go across to the other side. Just make a note, it was his idea. It wasn't their idea to go across to the other side. It was his idea to go across to the other side. And they take him in a boat. Other boats came along as well. And a huge storm came up. He asked the question, did Jesus know a storm was coming? What do you think? Some people are nodding. I can't see anybody shaking their head. That's because you know that he knows everything about everyone, everywhere, every who, every why, every what. He just knows everything. So knowing that there was this storm coming, and he was going to have a little nap anyway before it landed, he suggests we go across to the other side of the lake. Fascinating, isn't it? Why is he doing that? We'll find out as we go on. Well, the storm was so huge. The waves just came into the boat over Jesus, who was in the boat, head on a pillow, sleeping. He didn't wake up. The storm never woke him up. The disciples had to wake him up. And they're saying, "Teacher, is it nothing to you that we are going down?" So they wake him up. And he wakes up and he just says to the wind, "Excuse me, pipe down." What happens? What happens when he says, "Pipe down, wind"? The wind does what it's told. It pipes down. And then he says to the sea, it's a large lake, really, "Be quiet. You settle down." And guess what happened? The wind runs out of breath. The lake becomes as smooth as glass. And Jesus says to the disciples, "Why are you such cowards? Don't you have any faith at all?" That's the only question he asks them. We don't know how long he was with them. But reading on, of course, he goes to the other side of the lake, beginning of chapter 5 onwards, and does some other things. But let's just keep into these last 2 or 3 verses. And this is what I thought I was going to be giving a message, and God said to me, "That's not quite the message, Barry. I'm saying something else through this to you, and I want you to say this to the congregation." It's a question. Do you have any faith at all? It's a great question. Could be somebody here who's wandered in by mistake and they haven't come because they've got faith in God or faith in the church or faith in this church. But most of us are here because, well, we are believers. Perhaps not all of us, but perhaps we are all believers. And he's asking the question, do you have any faith, church? Do you have any faith? Any faith at all? Well, just listening to the notices tells me you do. Because of what you are hoping to do, how you're going to be blessing the festival next week, and the people who are going to be coming in here, people who are not normally in the church, this church, on a Sunday, but they've come in from the festival, and you're going to be a blessing to them. He wants to know, how are your faith levels doing? That's what I believe he's asking me to say this morning. Where are your faith levels? And of course it finishes this chapter by saying the disciples were in absolute awe, staggered. Who is this anyway? The wind and the sea are at his beck and call. So he's asking the question, do you have any faith at all in me? That's what he's really asking. Are you trusting me? Will you trust me? Have there been times when you've struggled and thought, he's forgotten my name. He just doesn't see me anymore. He's not listening to me. But he's challenging that. He's saying, how are your faith levels? Don't you have any faith at all? As I was thinking about this, and this is not going to be a long message, you will be so pleased to know. I just thought, yeah, it takes me back. When I was working in the bank in the West End initially, Trafalgar Square, that's a lovely place to be in London. Great way to spend your lunch hours, walking around all the sites. Then I was in the City of London for a few years. That was going really well, very happy. And then God began to prompt me. That's all I can say. You know what it's like sometimes when you just get a little voice on the inside and you think, is that from you, God? Are you saying something to me? I just keep it to myself. I didn't even tell my wife. But whilst I was in the bank, I just felt God saying, and I liked it in the bank. It was great. Mortgage, when mortgage rates were in their 20s, my mortgage rate was 2.5% because I'm staff of the bank. Good old Barclays. Oh, and by the way, they said, that car loan you've got, that's 2.5% as well. So we had loads of money. We could have what we wanted, really. I mean, most of it was borrowed, but at 2.5%, wow. Very happy days. So I'm in the bank, I'm working away, made friends in the bank. I actually became a Christian in that bank because some guy, I had a position of authority in the bank. I wasn't a manager or anything like that. The bank was too big, but I was head of a department. And they decided to do a silly thing. which was to decorate the room I was in. It's quite a big room, at half the size of this room. And the decorators came in and had to move a few people around. And one of the guys they moved around was a guy called Dave. And they said, "Oh, Barry, you've got a nice big desk. Well, if you've got a job of authority in the bank, you have a big desk and a comfortable chair." And he said, "Got a bit of news for you. Dave is going to come and sit on the end of your desk." I said, "Oh, come on. I didn't actually say anything because I've got to do what I'm told, you know. But I'm thinking, this is not good news. I'm not happy about this. I was a Jehovah's Witness at the time, you know. But then I thought, well, I could witness to him. Dave, he can't get away. And I'm his boss. He can't even go to lunch till I tell him it's time to go to lunch. He has to do what I tell him. So I was beginning to see the other side. And of course, Dave started answering my questions about what he believes and what he thinks and why is he not a Jehovah's Witness and all the rest of it. And little by little, God began to speak to me in a way I'd never heard him kind of communicate to me before. And I found I was doing more listening to what Dave was saying, who was a born-again Christian. He said to me, "I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, I'm evangelical." Do you know what? I was about 30. I'd never heard that word before. I didn't know what evangelical meant. I asked him the question, what's evangelical then? Is that different to Methodists or Baptists or anybody else? No. He explained what evangelical was. And I was grateful. And I'm questioning Dave, but he's got the answers, just humbly. In fact, we decided in the end, look, we've got a lot to talk about, you and me, because I'm a Jehovah's Witness and you're this evangelical Baptist, I think he was. And why don't we take lunch hour together in the canteen and just talk about God? Yes, we both said yes. I was pleased, and he seemed pleased as well. And of course, you know what happened. God used him to make me think again, and again, and again. And in the end, I was believing some of the things he was saying. Oh, just get my water, hang on. I'll put it there. And it was because of Dave's witness to me that when he said to me, if you want to know what an evangelical church looks like, you can come to my church on Sunday. I lived in Hertfordshire. He lived in Guildford. Well, it's a long way. So it became a weekend. Okay. Have you ever heard of the guy called David Pawson? Probably one of the most famous Baptist ministers back in the 70s. I mean, he was just, that was Dave's pastor. So I'm going with Bunny, my wife, and 2 little children for the weekend. Going to one Sunday morning preach, that's all we had. I came away from there thinking, I've got to do some serious thinking. God is speaking to me through this preacher. I know I'm losing ground on the witnesses. I know God is beginning to show me something of what is actually the Christian faith. and to realise that the Jehovah's Witnesses were making mistakes because they even denied the divinity of Jesus Christ himself. Well, I won't bore you with their theology, but I found myself leaving the Witnesses and joining the local Baptist church, and I did that for a while. And my faith was growing. I was still working in the bank, but I heard God also say to me, and this time I didn't tell Bunny anything. He said to me, "You won't be in the bank much longer." Oh, why is that then? Because I'm going to take you out of the bank. I'm going to send you to a Bible college, which is only 5 miles from where you live in Hoddesdon. And then I'm going to ask you to be somebody who works full-time for me running a church. Oh, I thought you were joking. Okay, so how do I tell Bunny? Don't tell Bunny. I thought, no, don't tell Bunny. Let's just wait and see if that is confirmed by a third party who knows nothing. That was my plan. It is all about how much faith do you have. Well, I didn't have faith to say, yes, Lord, straight away. I had faith to say, if somebody else confirms what you're saying, I'll say yes. Well, time went by and nothing happened. So I said, look, it's time's ticking away. I'll be in church on Sunday, our own church in Hoddesdon, and if something is said on Sunday that I can say that's the word for me, then I'm your man, and I'll resign from the bank straight away. But if I don't hear anything on Sunday, I'm going to forget this, because it's just messing me up, really. I'm not quite sure where I am. I didn't tell Bunny. So she and I went to church with the children. Good service. I'm listening away. My ears were right out here. There's a word coming. There's a word coming. Nothing. Communion came. I thought this could be it. In that church, we did communion after the service. So, okay, got a bit more time. Over the communion, he's going to land on me. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Okay. What a relief, really. Because I'm quite happy in the bank at 2.5%. Everything's 2.5% in the bank, you know. Why leave the bank? So I thought, well, I've got my answer. That's fine. I said Sunday, nothing's happened. We get home from church. Bunny gets the chicken out the oven. Just as she's about to serve it, the telephone rings. This old boy, one of the oldest men in the church, said, "Barry, can I come and talk to you?" I said, "Well, Leslie, we're just about to eat chicken dinner." He said, "This won't take 60 seconds. I won't even sit down when I come into your house." I said to Bunny, "Oh, it's Les. He probably wants me to go and do a job for him, because I used to do some of his little mend your fence jobs, because he lived just behind us, and he was an elderly man with an elderly wife. So I thought he probably wants something. Well, he didn't want anything. He just came to tell me something. And he said, when we were having communion this morning, I distinctly heard God speak to me, and I don't often get words from God, but I distinctly heard words from God to say, Barry needs to know I want him at the bank and trained for ministry, and I want you to tell him today." I said, "Oh, Les." Bunny looks at me and says, what's he talking about? You know, I don't know. Well, I did know. I said, so he turned to go. I said, listen, before you go, I need to tell you something, Les. And Bunny, you need to listen to this. Because I've not even told you before what's been ticking away inside me. I asked for Sunday. If it's a yes on Sunday from God, I'll resign on Monday. That's my promise. And what you just heard, Bunny, and what Les has just done, who knew nothing of what I was thinking at all, for me, that was the clincher. Go to work on Monday. Hello, everybody. Had a nice weekend? Not really. Life-changing. I'm resigning today. Today? Yeah, I'll be off in a month. That's how much time you have to give them. I'm resigning today. Well, what are you doing? We'll give you more money if you like. No, it's not about money. So what's the problem? I said, I haven't got a problem. I said, God has spoken to me over the weekend. And I've got to go. So I'm saying cheerio in a month's time. Faith. Eventually, I had enough faith to do what I said. But it took me a while. Jesus was upset with these disciples. Because he said, are you cowards? That's the word he uses here. Are you such cowards? Don't you have any faith at all? He knew about the storm. He knew the storm was coming. It was his idea to get in the boat. Not theirs. It was his idea to cross to the other side, where it was even more stormy. Not their idea, it was his idea. Because he knew what he was going to be doing. And they were just thinking, wow, we're in absolute awe, we're staggered. And then they say, who is this anyway? And they're not really doubting him when they say that. They're just saying, how can the wind and the sea be at his beck and call? He's greater than we ever thought he was. He's got divine power. It's amazing. And you know the end of the story. He works with these disciples. Next thing that happens in the beginning of chapter 5, they get to the other side of the sea or the lake, so the storm wasn't as bad to drown them after all, because Jesus had told the storm to quieten down. They got to the other side of the lake. He got out the boat and walked straight into a madman from the cemetery. And then we have another story, another miracle. He likes it when we have faith and use it. So he gave me a bit of faith. And when other people started talking to me about it and coming, like Dave coming and saying, I believe God wants you out of the bank and trained for him, my faith was getting bigger. And Jesus was more pleased. Faith is growing. How's your faith? How big is your faith? Mustard seed, that's big enough. If it's the size of a, where are we? Here we go. It's the size of that acorn. That's big enough. As long as you have some faith. And if you do, and you let God work on it, then he will build your faith. I've got two other little illustrations, and then I'm going to stop. My daughter's married to a guy who's healthy, generous, hard-working, runs his own business, is a builder, not been sick until one day, a little while back, he had terrific stomachache. He couldn't sleep in bed for 3 nights. He couldn't go to work for 3 days. He was just so hurting inside. So he's staying at home. My daughter takes the dog for a walk, goes through little woods. She does this most days when she's finished work. And the car park is always full, because there's more dogs in England than ever before, is my conclusion. Everywhere you go, people are walking dogs. Some are walking 2. My daughter's got 3 dogs now. And the eldest is this Great Dane. No, not Great Dane, it's the other great big black dog. He's incredible size. The other 2 are relatively small. They're only, what do you call them? Alsatians, something like that. Anyway, she's got the 3 dogs. She was taking one for a walk through a park, a very popular park. Now, this is a park, or part of the woods. All the dog walkers are there. Cars over there, just packed. On this day, Debbie went for a walk with the dog, and there was no one in the car park. And that's really weird. But not as weird as what happened next. Because she thought, this is really odd. Still, out we get, off we go. She's walking down. One of her dogs is one of the fastest dogs you've ever known. They suggested to my daughter that if her dog went to America, he could make her a lot of money because he's so fast. Well, that's the dog she had. And she was walking him along, and she saw in front of her a young lady with her back to her in a white Macintosh, and she was juggling coloured balls. It was ridiculous, isn't it? And she thinks, I don't know what's going on here, but when I get up to her, I'm going to walk past her, and I'm going to look to see what she looks like. But I have a feeling, she said to me afterwards, I had a feeling that when I looked, there'd be no one there. And that's what happened. She walked past the girl juggling the balls. Because if she drops the ball, my dog can pick it up faster than she can. Then there'll be trouble, there'll be an argument. So she walks past her, and she's not there. And she said out loud to God, what's this about? And he said, it's about your husband. I'm not going to drop the ball on your husband. In other words, she interpreted it correctly. He's going to get well. He's very sick now, been told he's got stomach cancer, but your husband is going to recover. The next day they had the appointment at the doctor's, and the doctor takes x-rays. Again, he's got all the old x-rays on the wall in his office, but he puts the new x-rays next to them. He said, see that? Those x-rays that I took the other week? You can see the shadows, see the cancer in the tummy. Look at this one I've just done today. Totally clean. Totally clean. They couldn't believe it. I mean, it was a miracle. I think, wow, that's a little bit of faith that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I've got a friend called Joel. I'll finish with this. Joel is the pastor at the Globe, you know. Get Job in here, you have some fun. He's a very lively, charismatic preacher. He thought he was getting married. They got married abroad. They were in the restaurant. The best man was with him. The bridesmaids were there. They were having a meal. It was time to go, but the bridesmaid swallowed something and choked to death. So Joel cries out, is there a doctor in the restaurant? Yes, there is a doctor over there. She comes across. I know where the hospital is. I can take your friend to the hospital in my fast car. Try and keep up with me and you'll find the hospital as well. That's what happens. They get to the hospital. By the time Joel gets there, this guy is laid out on the bed and the doctors are saying, sorry, you're too late. We couldn't save him. And Joel's thinking, well, that's terrible. He's getting married tomorrow to my daughter. Oh no, it was the best man. This was the best man who was ill, not the groom to come, but this was the best man. Tomorrow's the wedding, and you tell me he's died. He said, do you mind if I pray? Joel's thinking, I've booked him to preach in a month's time. And I only booked him to preach in a month's time because God told me to. So if he's going to be preaching in a month's time, he can't die today. Now Joel's just thinking this. This is how he told me a few days later. Have a nice weekend, Joel. This is his story. He says to the guys, medics, can I pray? They said, yeah, you can. Right, it won't do any good. But yeah, carry on. So Joel prays. The oxygen cylinders that were there, which weren't used because they were too late, exploded. The guy sat up in bed and said, what is going on? I said, you've just come back from the dead. Just, wow. They're measures of faith I'm still trying to aspire to, you know. Jesus is so pleased when we have faith. He likes us to use our faith. Don't be a coward. Don't you have any faith at all? And they're just awestruck. Wow. But just for your encouragement, if you're not very good on faith, bear in mind that he stays with these disciples for the rest of their lives. And they see him do more miracles, and they become miracle workers themselves. So, whatever little bit of faith you've got, this is the message in a sentence really, give it to God. Whatever your situation, whatever the reason for needing a bit of faith, give it to God. He'll be pleased you're using faith. You're not moaning because he's fallen asleep and they've got all wet and they might drown and stuff. No. You're just asking him, Lord, I've got a little bit of faith to believe that you will help me with this. And that will please him enormously. And he will answer the prayer the way he knows is best.